which white paint is right for your painting. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. In today's artist vlog, I'm going to talk a little bit about the different types of white paint that I use and why I choose those specific ones. As it turns out, there are a ton of different types of white paint, so knowing which one to use is going to completely depend on what project you're trying to complete and how you apply that paint. First, I'm going to start with my opaque white. Most artists will go with titanium white for their main opaque white. Personally, in oil paint, I go with the Weber's Permalba Original, which is a titanium zinc mixture. I like this paint. It's very, very soft. It's very creamy. It is so easy to work with. It works so well for the way that I paint. Now, if I were to be painting with a palette knife, this would not be my first choice. It is a very, very soft paint, and so it's hard to really, it does not work great for the palette knife. So in that case, I would be using titanium white. But for me, I paint in very light, flat layers, and so the Weber's Permalba Original is definitely my go-to white in oil paint. For acrylic, my main opaque white that I use is just titanium white. Next, for oil paint is Flake White. Now this I don't use quite as often. The Flake White is a slightly warmer white than the titanium white or the Weber's Original. This isn't one that it's not a must-have for me. More often than not, I still like my Weber's Original when I want an opaque white. Next are the transparent whites. For oil, I personally will go to Zinc White. For acrylic, I use one by Liquitex. It's their heavy body transparent mixing white. These whites are very cool. They have a slight bluish tint to it, very subtle, but it's there, and so you need to keep that in mind because sometimes you will cool off an area that you want warm when you're using these, so be aware that it is a cool white. But you can glaze with this white. If you were to glaze with an opaque white, the titanium or the Weber's Permalba Original, those are going to give you a very foggy look. If I glaze, like if I'm putting rays of light coming through water or rays of light coming through trees, however it is, if I don't have an airbrush, which would be my preferred method, but if I'm doing this without an airbrush, these transparent whites can get a very similar look without those rays looking foggy. They just lighten up those areas. Now the zinc white with oil paint, you do need to be aware, if you paint heavy with a palette knife, this is not a paint I would choose. Or if you're just using heavy brush strokes, this paint has a tendency, the way that it dries very fast, and there's something about the zinc in it. It is notorious for flaking off the canvas or peeling or causing all kinds of problems. So as far as wanting your painting to be archival, I would not be applying this paint heavily. I use it in very, very thin layers mixed down with a lot of liquid when I want that highlight, the translucent color. But again, this is not one I would be applying heavily all over the painting. Now, Winsor Newton also makes their transparent mixing white. This one is not quite as transparent as the zinc white. I would recommend playing around with the different white paints and see which works better for the project that you're using and the techniques that you're using. For me, these are just my personal go-to paints. Last one I want to mention is Unbleached Titanium White. I use this all the time in acrylic paint. This is a warm color, so keep that in mind when you are mixing it with other colors, but when you're going for a lot of the neutral tones where you don't want white or a cool white, this is a really good option. This is one that you can mix with using your titanium white and add some of your other colors into it to get this cream color, but it's a color that I use so often that it's just easier to buy a big tube of it because I use this all the time. Anything that I want white, I will usually paint this first and then put white highlights on top of it. Again, it depends on what I'm doing, but this is one of my must-haves as well. Like I said, play around with the different white paints and do your own research because some of these, like the zinc white, also has lead in it, as does the Weber's Permalba Original. So you need to be aware of that because you don't want to be getting that in a cut or in your mouth or anything like that because you could end up with problems down the road. It should not be able to soak through your skin, but if you do have a cut or open wound or something that it gets into, that's probably not ideal. Definitely be aware of that. With acrylics, they're generally all going to be non-toxic, so you don't have to worry about that. Thanks for watching. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, social media tips for artists each Thursday, and artist vlogs every weekend. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Google+, all of the social media sites, links below in the video description to keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I'll see you on Tuesday.